What happens when a routine dive turns into a deadly trap underwater? On October 27, 2020, two commercial divers entered the Lake Oliver Dam for what seemed like an ordinary inspection, but one of them would never return. Eric Herbert and Alex Paxton were no strangers to the world beneath the water. Both men worked for Glenn Industrial Group, a company specializing in underwater maintenance and repairs. Their job on this particular day was straightforward enough: inspect the damaged chain of one of the control gates at the Lake Oliver Dam in Columbus, Georgia. The dam, operated by Georgia Power, required regular maintenance to ensure its hydroelectric system functioned properly. This type of work was familiar territory for Eric and Alex. Each had over a decade of experience in commercial diving. They knew the risks involved in their line of work, but they also understood the importance of thorough preparation. Commercial diving is dangerous, especially when it involves enclosed industrial spaces such as dams. One of the most significant hazards these divers face is differential pressure, which occurs when there are sources of energy in the water that could potentially harm them. These sources include open valves, moving water, or areas where pressure differs between chambers. Differential pressure can create powerful suction forces, capable of pulling a diver into a hole or pinning them against grates, often with deadly consequences. To mitigate these risks, facilities must implement a lockout tagout procedure before any dives take place. This process involves identifying all potential sources of energy within the facility, locking each valve or switch in the closed position, and tagging them with warning labels until the maintenance work is complete. However, the complexity of modern industrial systems often means that even experienced professionals may overlook certain components. In the case of the Lake Oliver Dam, the structure was far from simple. It consisted of multiple layers of interconnected pipes, valves, and chambers, designed to regulate the flow of water through the hydroelectric system. Each component played a crucial role in maintaining operational safety. Eric and Alex arrived at the dam on the morning of the dive, ready to begin their task. Before entering the water, they reviewed the lockout tagout checklist provided by the dam's employees. Each item on the list had been double-checked and confirmed safe for maintenance. Satisfied with the preparations, the divers conducted their own final checks for any signs of differential pressure. Using specialized equipment, they measured the water movement around the gates and priming valve listed on the checklist. Everything appeared normal, and the area seemed secure for diving. The section of the dam they were about to enter was known as the water fill chamber, where the main gates resided. These gates controlled the flow of water through the penstock pipe to the turbines, generating electricity for the region. When the gates were open, water rushed through the penstock to turn the turbines, producing power. Conversely, when the gates were closed, the penstock emptied out, creating an open chamber leading to the turbines. On this day, after completing the lockout-tagout procedure, the penstock was mostly empty because all the gates were locked shut. With everything appearing safe, Alex prepared to descend into the narrow column of water to examine the chain. Alex was equipped with standard diving gear, including a helmet camera and light to document his findings. Communication with the surface tender remained constant via an air umbilical supplying him with a continuous flow of breathable air. As he began his descent, the first 20 feet felt routine, and the chain looked intact. Slowly, he continued downward, carefully inspecting every inch of the structure. Each movement was deliberate as he scanned for signs of wear or damage that could indicate future problems. The water around him was calm, and the initial section of the chain appeared undamaged. Little did he know, a hidden danger lurked nearby, waiting to strike. The task seemed straightforward at first. Alex moved methodically, ensuring no detail escaped his attention. His training emphasized the importance of thoroughness. In environments like these, even minor issues could escalate into major complications. He paused occasionally to examine specific points more closely, using the light from his helmet to illuminate areas obscured by shadows. Every observation was critical, not just for identifying immediate repairs, but also for planning long-term maintenance strategies. As Alex ventured deeper, the atmosphere shifted subtly. The dim light from above grew fainter, casting the surrounding environment in shades of blue and gray. Despite the lack of natural illumination, the clarity of the water allowed him to see clearly for several feet in all directions. This visibility made it easier to navigate through the narrow column of water while maintaining contact with the chain. Still, the confined space required constant awareness of his surroundings to avoid entanglement or other hazards. The dam's complex network of pipes and valves held secrets even some of its own employees were unaware of. Unknown to Eric, Alex, and many others present that day, there was another valve, not included on the Lockout tagout checklist. This valve played a crucial role in priming the penstock before opening the main gate. Its purpose was to prevent a sudden rush of water from damaging the turbine at the end of the penstock pipe. However, this vital component had been overlooked during the planning stages of the dive, setting the stage for tragedy. This oversight stemmed from incomplete documentation of the dam's systems. While the facility's employees believed they had accounted for all potential sources of energy, certain components remained undocumented or misunderstood. In particular, the priming system. The system was a secondary mechanism designed to regulate water flow. The problem was that it was not fully integrated into routine maintenance procedures. One part of this system, a flapper-type valve, had been properly locked and tagged according to protocol. But the second component, a wheel-operated gate valve, remained open, creating an unseen risk that neither the divers nor their support team could anticipate. For Alex, the absence of visible anomalies reinforced his confidence in the safety measures taken prior to the dive. With each passing moment, the likelihood of encountering trouble seemed remote. Yet, as he descended further, the pressure increased incrementally, pressing against his body and equipment. Though well prepared for such conditions, he remained vigilant, knowing that complacency could lead to disaster in environments as unforgiving as these. Little by little, Alex approached the lower sections of the chain, still finding no evidence of defects. At this depth, the silence was almost absolute, broken only by the steady hiss of air flowing through his umbilical line. It is a sound that provides reassurance to most divers, reminding them of their connection to the surface. But despite the apparent normalcy of the situation, the seeds of catastrophe were already sown. Just beyond Alex's field of vision lay a 10-inch pipe connected to an unlimited source of water from the reservoir above. The incredible pressure differential created by this connection formed a devastating vortex, ready to unleash its fury at any moment. And then, in an instant, it happened. Eric Herbert watched in horror as the water suddenly surged around Alex Paxton. One moment, his diving partner was carefully inspecting the chain, and the next, he was being pulled toward a hidden danger with terrifying force. The situation unfolded so quickly that Eric barely had time to process what was happening. Alex's arm disappeared into a 10-inch pipe, and his body was slammed against the hard surface of the dam with such violence that it became clear this was no ordinary accident. A cry for help echoed through the water-filled chamber, sending chills down Eric's spine. Alex had shouted that he was stuck, his voice filled with panic and urgency. This desperate message was relayed through the air umbilical system to everyone on the surface, heightening the tension and fear among the support team. Without hesitation, Eric sprang into action, grabbing hold of Alex and trying to pull him free. But even with all his strength, there was no budging the powerful suction gripping his colleague. The pressure differential was immense, far greater than anything they had anticipated. Alex's body was wedged tightly against the opening, creating an even stronger vacuum effect. His chest pressed flat against the dam wall, making breathing nearly impossible. The force holding him in place was relentless, and every attempt by Eric to free him proved futile. Panic began to set in, not just for Alex, but also for everyone on the surface who heard the frantic communication. The realization dawned on them all that something catastrophic had occurred, something beyond their immediate control. The confined space added to the difficulty of the rescue attempt. Eric struggled to find leverage or any way to counteract the overwhelming suction. Each movement he made was deliberate, yet frustrated by the circumstances. Despite his efforts, the more he strained, the more apparent it became that the source of the problem lay elsewhere, outside their immediate reach. Above them, the support team scrambled to figure out what could possibly be causing such intense suction. They rechecked every item on the lockout tagout checklist, confirming again and again that all valves and switches were securely locked and tagged. Yet something was clearly wrong, and the water movement should have been non-existent after completing the procedure. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as Eric fought against the forces pinning Alex in place. Every second counted, and the longer Alex remained trapped, the greater the risk to his life. The pressure differential was crushing, leaving little room for error or delay. For Eric, the weight of the situation pressed heavily upon him. He knew that every ounce of effort he put into freeing his colleague might mean the difference between life and death. Yet, despite his determination, the odds were stacked impossibly high against him. On the surface, the support team scrambled to figure out what could possibly be causing such intense suction. They rechecked every item on the lockout tagout checklist, confirming again and again that all valves and switches were securely locked and tagged. Yet something was clearly wrong. The water movement should have been non-existent after completing the procedure. How could this happen? Questions raced through their minds as they desperately searched for answers. Time was running out, and each passing second brought Alex closer to death. The urgency of the situation weighed heavily on everyone involved. The dive tender monitored communications from underwater, while coordinating with dam employees to identify any overlooked hazards. Each member of the team knew the stakes were high, but the checklist had been followed meticulously, leaving little room for error, or so they thought. Still, doubts began to creep in. Could there have been a mistake in the initial assessment of the dam systems? Was it possible that an undocumented component existed somewhere within the facility? Back underwater, Eric did everything he could think of to free his trapped friend. He tried pulling from different angles, using leverage points within the confined space, but nothing worked. The more he struggled, the more apparent it became that the source of the problem lay beyond their immediate control. His efforts grew frantic as he realized how limited his options truly were. Every attempt to dislodge Alex only reinforced the overwhelming power of the suction force pinning him against the pipe. The confined environment made it difficult to maneuver effectively, further complicating the rescue effort. Above them, the dam employees joined forces with the dive team to identify the rogue valve responsible for the deadly force. Minutes felt like hours as they scoured the facility for any overlooked energy source. One employee suggested reviewing blueprints or technical drawings of the dam's internal structure, hoping to uncover hidden components not included on the standard checklist. Another proposed checking areas outside the typical scope of maintenance operations, venturing into parts of the facility rarely accessed during routine inspections. These ideas sparked renewed effort among the team, who now understood that the solution might lie in an undocumented section of the dam. Finally, someone discovered the truth, an additional valve not listed on the lockout tagout checklist. This valve played a critical role in priming the penstock before opening the main gate. Its purpose was to prevent a sudden rush of water from damaging the turbine at the end of the pipe. However, its existence had been neglected during the planning stages of the dive. While one part of the priming system, a flapper-type valve, had been properly locked and tagged, the other component, a wheel-operated gate valve, remained open. This small oversight created a catastrophic delta P situation. The pressure difference between the reservoir above and the empty penstock below generated an overwhelming force, 850 pounds per square inch. The revelation sent shockwaves through the team. How could such a vital component have been omitted from the checklist? It seemed inconceivable that a valve designed to regulate water flow could escape documentation, especially given its importance to the safe operation of the dam. Yet here they were, facing the consequences of this glaring omission. The realization added fuel to their determination to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. Once identified, the team rushed to close the valve. Unfortunately, accessing it proved challenging. Located off the top of the dam and behind a locked gate, it required extra time to reach and operate. Despite moving as quickly as possible, It took nearly 30 minutes to shut off the flow completely. The delay was agonizing, each moment stretching endlessly as they fought against both time and circumstance. By then, Alex's body had endured unimaginable stress under the crushing pressure. His muscles could not expand his chest enough to allow him to breathe, and after only a few minutes, he lost consciousness. Tragically, he did not survive. The aftermath of the incident left a profound impact on everyone involved. For Eric Herbert, witnessing firsthand how a simple error, a missing valve on a checklist, could turn a routine dive into a fatal disaster would haunt him forever. The loss of Alex Paxton served as a stark reminder of the dangers faced by commercial divers every day. Their work requires precision, knowledge, and unwavering attention to detail. When things go wrong, the consequences can be swift and devastating. Eric struggled to come to terms with what had happened, often questioning whether there was more he could have done to save his colleague. Following the tragic incident at the Lake Oliver Dam, Alex Paxton's family took legal action against Georgia Power, holding the company accountable for the oversight that led to his death. The lawsuit alleged violations in the operating procedures of the dam, specifically highlighting the missing valve on the Lockout tagout checklist as a critical failure. Although details surrounding the settlement remain undisclosed, it was reported that Georgia Power reached an agreement with the family, acknowledging their responsibility in the tragic event. In the weeks following the tragedy, investigations revealed multiple failures in the procedures followed by Georgia Power. Inadequate communication of the dam's layout and incomplete documentation of its systems were at the forefront. These oversights directly led to the accident. The Lockout tagout checklist, which is meant to serve as a failsafe against such incidents, had failed due to critical omissions. One key component of the priming system, a wheel-operated gate valve, had been entirely neglected during the planning stages of the dive. This valve played a crucial role in regulating water flow through the penstock, ensuring the turbine at the end of the pipe was not damaged during operation. Its absence from the checklist created an unseen hazard that neither Eric nor Alex could anticipate. As news of the incident spread, it sparked widespread outrage and calls for reform within the hydroelectric power industry. In response, updated protocols were implemented across similar facilities worldwide, emphasizing the importance of comprehensive risk assessments and thorough pre-dive preparations. Lockout tagout checklists now include all valves, regardless of perceived significance, to eliminate gaps in safety measures. Training programs for both dam employees and commercial divers were revamped to ensure greater awareness of potential hazards and improved coordination between teams. Additionally, facilities began requiring detailed schematics of their systems to be provided to contractors before any maintenance work commenced. For Eric Herbert, returning to work after such a traumatic experience proved challenging but ultimately rewarding. He continued to dive professionally, leveraging his expertise to help others avoid similar pitfalls. Over time, he became a vocal advocate for safety reforms, frequently collaborating with organizations dedicated to improving conditions for commercial divers. His contributions helped shape new guidelines and training modules used by companies around the globe. Though the pain of losing Alex never fully faded, Eric found solace in knowing that his efforts might save lives in the future. Meanwhile, the Lake Oliver Dam underwent extensive renovations to address the issues exposed by the incident. New safety mechanisms were installed, and regular audits became mandatory to ensure compliance with updated regulations. Employees received additional training focused on identifying overlooked components within complex industrial systems. These measures transformed the facility into a model of modern safety practices, serving as a testament to the lessons learned from the tragedy. Despite these improvements, the memory of Alex Paxton remains etched in the minds of those who knew him, and those whose lives he touched indirectly. His story continues to inspire discussions about workplace safety and the importance of vigilance in high-risk environments.